Hello, everyone. Welcome to the New England and Bermuda virtual workshop. My name is Elise DeNorfia. I am the Leadership Development Coordinator and a member of the Kiwanis Club of New England and Bermuda. It's great to see all your smiling faces here on Zoom, and thank you to those who are watching us live on Facebook. This is the 9th session in our 2021-2022 virtual workshop series. This is a reminder that all of our workshops have the potential to count as interclubs on your monthly secretary report forms. If your club has enough members attending this workshop, you get to report an interclub with each individual club in attendance. To help everyone determine the number of interclubs they can report, we ask all attendees to send a quick message in the chat with your name and your club. If your club is eligible for an interclub, you can either write down the names of all the clubs in attendance, click the ellipses ... next to the chat to save the chat so you can review the club names later, or visit our Google Drive of resources for a list of clubs represented at each workshop compiled by our committee's fabulous interclub liaison, David Griffin. You can always find a link to that folder in the Zoom confirmation email. Before we start tonight's workshop, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to ask people to stay muted to ensure that we have an uninterrupted presentation, but we will be asking for some feedback and for some interaction. So at that point, you'll be able to unmute yourself and participate with our fabulous presenter here. You're welcome to keep your camera on. It's nice to see everyone's faces, but obviously not required. You do what feels most comfortable for you. If you have any questions for tonight's presenters, please post them in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, you can comment on the live stream with your questions, and we should have a couple minutes at the end for some question and answer time. Tonight's presentation will be roughly an hour. You'll be able to find recordings of the workshop on our district Facebook page or district Facebook group and in our YouTube channel. So let's get started. Our topic tonight is succession planning, closing the gap. Developing a strong talent strategy has made the greatest impact on organizational success. How can we engage and cultivate our emerging leaders to step up to the next level? Let's talk about how to close the gap and bring your club and district to the next level. And our wonderful presenter tonight is Emily Saalfrank, who is our area director from Kiwanis International. Emily, take it away.
Yay! Hello, friends. It is so nice to see you and to see so many familiar faces. I love hanging out with New England and Bermuda friends. So thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Elise, will you just give me, a head nod that you can see what you need to see? I'm going to share from the beginning. Can you see where you're? Okay, perfect. I love a good thumbs up. Yay. So happy Wednesday from rainy Indianapolis. Just a quick update for you. We are knee deep in preparing for Kiwanis International Convention, which will be held here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I live, next week. So I am excited for those who are able to come in person, those who will be participating virtually, and those I will see at another event upcoming soon. So again, just super excited to be here tonight. Like Elise mentioned, my name is Emily Saalfrank. As an area director on staff, I get to work with 8 different Kiwanis districts. With those districts, I do all things education and membership. And I see a lot of different Kiwanis members, Kiwanis clubs, and the way things are done. And it's so heartwarming rather, to know that we all have the same mission, which is to serve the children of the world. And honestly, we couldn't do that with fabulous members like yourselves. And one of the struggles that I see and that I hear often is this whole concept of a lack of a leadership pipeline, right? And sometimes we really struggle with that succession planning. So I think that this is a really fabulous topic, and I'm excited to go ahead and dive into that with you tonight. So I will ask you, and you, those of you who have been on my presentations before know that I love presentations. It is really heartwarming to see a head nod and to see a smiling face, right? And I love a good chat emoji. And I will give you full permission to please unmute yourself if you want to chat with me, because we have a really good sized group here tonight, and I really welcome that. So this is your first opportunity. Yes, we're kicking it off with a bang. I'm already asking you to participate. I want to know, who are some famous leaders in the entire world? Who, when I say who is a famous leader, who comes to mind? Go ahead and unmute yourself, or put some thoughts in the chat. I'm going to ask my friend Elise to tell me what she's reading in the chat that I know everyone is working on typing into now. I'll give you a couple of seconds.
Nelson Mandela.
Oh, for sure. Great answer. I know we've got some more coming, I'm sure. We're typing away. We're putting our thinking caps on. Who else do we have? Leaders.
President Joe Biden.
We do. He's absolutely a leader. You're right. Who else, friends? I'm making you work for it very early on.
JFK.
Yes. Keep going. Keep going. The president of Ukraine. I see that. Absolutely.
I also received Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Patricia said, me. I love that. That's so true. Thank you for saying that. Have you done this presentation before? We have Queen Elizabeth, Martin Luther King. Absolutely, friends. These are so good. And I think some of you were reading my mind, because I'm going to go ahead and throw up some leaders on the board. We are all familiar with probably most of these. We have Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr. We also have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, George Washington, and of course, my favorite leader, who I aspire to be all the time. Any guesses? If you guess Dolly Parton, you guess right. She's absolutely a leader. One of these things that all of these people have in common is that they all looked up to someone at one point, right? They all had someone that inspired them to be a leader. And there are people today who inspired to be leaders just like these people are or were. So I think it's really important to know that we all start somewhere. And now let's dive into the topic that we're really working on today, which is succession planning. Okay. So what is the purpose of having succession planning? Okay. Just like we would if we had a quarterback, and y'all know I love me some Peyton Manning as a former Tennessee Volunteer, as a former Indiana football player, and a Denver Bronco fan. A quarterback has to have someone who is willing, if they get hurt, or any football player rather, they have to have someone who's willing to come in after them and to help them. And the same with a play. As if an actor's in a play and they fall ill or whatever, they have to have an understudy, someone who's going to know all their lines and can fill in at any point. Well, we kind of have to have that succession planning too. And I'm not talking just about in Kiwanis world, a president, or for a lieutenant governor, or for insert title here, right? So we kind of have to have a succession plan for everything that we do. What is a succession plan? Well, I've found so many really good definitions online, but I want to share a couple of them, or one that stood out to me with you today. So it's up on the screen and you can see it at the bottom. Succession planning is a process and strategy for replacement planning or passing on leadership roles. It is used to identify and develop new potential leaders who can move into leadership roles whenever they become vacant, right? Oh, and I love what we just have in the chat. Great for unforeseeable emergency or circumstances. You're absolutely right. And that's really important for us to keep in mind. So, let's take a minute just to reflect on our own clubs. Okay. Betty Parker, I can see you're reflecting, right? Why are you here? Okay. Are you here tonight because you don't have anything better to do? And you're like, maybe I want to hang out with Emily, which I really hope that's the answer. Maybe it's because you have someone that is not like, you don't have anyone stepping up in your club or in your division or in the area that you live in. Maybe it's because you can't get the right people into the right positions. Maybe you have a really great leadership pipeline and you have some knowledge that you want to share with the rest of our group. Regardless, we must have a plan on what succession planning is going to look like. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So on the screen, I have a really easy question. Why do we need a plan? Okay, it's an easy answer. Having a plan in place ensures that we are going to be successful. Okay, it might not mean we're always successful right at the beginning, but if we, what's that cheesy saying? And I love cheesy sayings, like if you don't plan, you're destined to fail. I don't know. Someone can correct me in the chat. You know what I'm talking about. But it's important that we know that we're starting off with a plan. Okay. And planning, as you can see on the board or on the screen, planning saves time in finding the best candidate, right? We don't want just any candidate. We want the best one. It also ensures that knowledge is passed down, because we all know that Kiwanis is full of history, right? We are over a 100-year-old organization, and there's a lot of history and context that comes with our organization and with our own clubs and divisions as well. In the year 2020, we had so many Kiwanis clubs that were celebrating 100 years, and that's really important. It also, if we have a plan, it helps address challenges and build on the existing strategic plans that we have. And it also really helps with smooth transitions. And let's be real, who doesn't want a smooth transition, right? Like no one's going to raise their hand, because we all want that, right? If we don't, let me know your secrets, because I would love to know that. So I think that that's one of the things we can keep in mind, is that we always know that we need to start with a plan. So where do we begin? I'm really glad you asked. So the way that we begin, friends, I really believe this, is with a positive volunteer experience. Okay. Sometimes it's as simple as a new mindset helps with a new result. Okay. We need a system, but you can't do that without having that positive membership experience. If we're not having fun, friends, we're doing it all wrong. We need to be having fun in all that we do. And if not, we can adjust some things. So first, are we having fun? Second, take a deep dive look into your own club. Okay, take a minute. Let's reflect. Think about the members in our club. Think about those people that are always there, those people that are sometimes there, and maybe think about those people that you haven't seen in a while. Okay. Now, as we're reflecting on those members, I want you to think, is there always someone who is next in line to follow in someone's footsteps? Is there always someone ready to step into that fundraising chair position? Is there always someone eager and ready to step into the president position? Is it an expectation that when you join the club that you're going to serve in some way? What if we have that as an expectation, that when we join a club, it is our duty to serve our club in some way in leadership? We all join knowing that we want to serve the children of the world, right? Like that's an easy go, right? But what if it was our expectation that we were going to serve the club? I think the most important takeaway in having that positive mindset is that we really need to value people's time. Because friends, here, I do a lot of studying on my own. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books, and I have just a lot of conversations with people. And a study that I just read said the most important thing about a person's life, if you're thinking to yourself, what is the most important thing in my life? Many of the answers to you probably would be the same as mine. My family is really important to me. My health is really important to me. my work is really important to me. My friendships, my faith, like all of these things are really important to me, right? You know, you can nod your head if some of those are familiar and the same to you. But the number one thing that's important to people, whether we realize it or not, is our time, because our time is what is the, you know, the core of our system. Time is what allows us to hang out with friends and family. Time is what allows us to get the sleep we need to be healthy, right? So we are competing against people's time. And if our members are not having a good, positive experience that is worth their time, why should they even bother? Okay, so we have to keep that in mind first. And then we have to say, okay, knowing that we're going to have a positive experience, where do we begin? Okay, so there are a couple of places that I think we can begin. Okay, if we're looking for a good leader, I think we can focus on the fact that a good leader really focuses on the mission, not the leader themselves. If we are focusing on what is the mission of Kiwanis International? It's probably all coming to your head right now. We can even put it in the chat. It's super simple. We say it and we wear it on our sleeves, right? The mission of Kiwanis International is to serve the children of the world, one child and one community at a time, right? Like that's our mission. And if we are arguing or doing anything that doesn't go hand in hand and correlate with our mission, what are we doing? Have you ever thought about that? Like, what are we doing? We really need to have good leaders that are focusing on the mission, not themselves. So if there's a leader in your club that's focusing on the agenda, we probably need to refocus our thoughts and our time and our energy, right? I also think a good leader is going to be one of those people that credits others for success. Okay, they're going to be the ones that say, hey, Elise, thank you for setting that up. Hey, David, thank you for taking notes, because I know that what you're doing makes a difference. It's really easy to say thank you, and I don't think we say that enough. Leaders, good leaders, are going to blame themselves for failure. And rather than blaming themselves for failures, I think we might even be able to take that a step further and rephrase that and say, hey, what have we learned from this? What have we learned from this, and where can we go from there? Because maybe they don't want to let this happen again. And then the fourth and fifth ones that I want to briefly mention before I talk a little bit about discussions are develops teams and creates a succession plan. Okay, a good leader is going to be the one that develops that picks the right people for the right team. What do I mean by this? Let's think about our own club experience. Have you ever had someone that doesn't really like to talk to someone? They're not the best, you know, being extroverted and having conversations with new people. So why would we put them as the greeter of our club, right? Maybe that's not their strength. However, maybe they are really good at working an Excel sheet, and that is their jam. And they can manipulate that Excel sheet to do whatever you want it to do in ways that I do not understand, right? Maybe we should ask them, hey, can you help us organize this Excel sheet for this upcoming project we have? And they would succeed in that, right? They know, a good leader knows the people in their club, what they're good at and what they need help with. So that way they can then excel and use their talents to the best of their ability. Okay. And then finally, a good leader creates a succession plan. Now, what is that? That's the reason why we're here tonight. So I want us to talk about that next. So when we're looking for a great leader, what do we need? Okay. In my opinion, the first thing we need is someone that is going to be action oriented. Okay, action oriented. What do you mean? What do you think I mean by action oriented? I want you to put in the screen or in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. When I say to have a good succession plan, you need a leader that's action oriented. What do I mean by that? What is action oriented? Thoughts, ideas? Elise, can you share what's going on in the chat?
Someone who gets the job done,
Mhm.
striving for success.
Absolutely. Friends, you're exactly right. See, that wasn't a hard question. A leader who is action oriented, they're going to be the ones who demonstrate those leadership talents, and they set those skills that others are encouraged to take them on, to take on new responsibilities, right? To take on those projects, the events, the committees. They're going to be the ones who are saying, pick me, like I'm going to do this, right? Probably without even having to be asked. We probably have some of those people in our own clubs that we can think about. We also, let me see if I can get okay. We need to have good leaders who are skilled listeners. Okay. What do I mean by that? Well, this one's an easy one. This is, the saying, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen more than we talk. That's really hard for me because, friends, I love to talk, right? Those who know me are like, yeah, she really can talk. But I have really challenged myself, and I've really been practicing the concept of listening. And I promise you, you will learn more from people by listening to them than you ever will by just having simple conversations with them, right? We need to be listening more. And I really think the whole concept of a good leader who is focused on succession planning is they're the ones that are going to be asking the right questions. Okay. They're going to be the ones who are, carefully minding those responses. And they're going to be like, they said that one little thing. Maybe I can do something with that. This is really crucial in all that we do, is making sure that we're actually listening to people and saying, Elise said she was passionate about, service. Maybe I should invite her to the service project, or maybe I should ask her what type of project she's interested in. Then our club can benefit from that. So maybe that's, listening is involved. It's no surprise to see this one on here, right? This is one of those skills that we need to have a passionate advocate. Believe it or not, friends, I hate to say this to you, but you have the word leader tattooed across your forehead. You know why? Because you're here when you could be doing other things, but you're here, and I'm really glad you chose to hang out with me tonight. So I can already tell that not only are you passionate about Kiwanis, but you're probably passionate about leadership too, right? So we need to have someone who is a passionate advocate. They're the ones that are going to have that deep-seated commitment to the mission. And those are those people that you are attracted to no matter what, right? Those people that just, radiate energy, and they radiate positivity, and they radiate leadership and strength. Not necessarily strength, right? But they demonstrate those leadership opportunities that, like, just by being in the room, right? Those are those people that we need. And those are those people that when we have a leader that's burning with a passion for the cause, you can't help but be drawn to them, right? We have to have that. We also have to have leaders who are passionate, okay, with a vision, okay? Those are those people that can inspire, they can motivate, and they can, really allow the whole organization to follow them to a future, right? We need to have people in our clubs who have a vision for the future. It's really hard for me to think futuristic like. However, there are some people who thrive on that. And so we need to say, you can see the future. Great. How can we get there? And they can help us describe that in a very compelling way. This one is also not a surprise. We must have someone that's a change agent. Okay. By change agent, I really mean a great leader that can provide the stability and organization needs to operate while also serving as a catalyst for change. Okay. I'm a big advocate in change. Let me say that again. I'm a big advocate for change in everyone's life except for mine. Cheryl, I'll help you change, but don't ask me to change, please. No, not me. Right? It's easier said than done. And I think that someone who's a great leader, they know that organizations and processes and people need to change, but they're also not going to expect it to happen overnight. And they're also going to help them provide that stability for the mission while we're in the midst of change. Okay, it also comes as no surprise. They are master communicators, friends, masters. And I think that that's another one that we might take for granted. I was reading an interesting article the other day that said it's more important to communicate the way others communicate versus how we prefer. Let me go on to explain that. Okay. I had a coworker at a previous job, and her name was Elizabeth, and I think very highly of her. And she would drive me crazy in emails, because at the end of an email communication back and forth, at the end of the conversation, she would reply to me, "Thanks." And I got so mad because I was like, "Elizabeth, I do not need another email in my inbox clogging it up. Like, who needs more email? No one, right?" But the problem is that was the way that she communicated, because by saying thanks, she would file it away and know that that project was done and that she was over with that communication. So in that instance, it is not about how I communicate, it's about how she communicated. And that's what we have to do with our club members too. We have to communicate in those ways that are helpful to them, which might not always be helpful to us. So we can keep that in mind. Okay. And the other thing that we need to be thinking about is, now it's up on the screen, it's problem solvers. Friends, like, when was the last time you had 3 or 4 people in your club say, hey, I have solutions to our problems, I have solutions, listen to me, right? Like, probably never, right? Because people aren't going to come to you with solutions, they're going to come to you with problems, right? And I think that that's something we need to be mindful of, is we're going to be problem solving machines, and we're going to say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let's think about that, and what can we do about it. So knowing that all these, I've been talking about all these, it would be impossible for me to make this an all-encompassing list, right? Because if I were to go through all of the traits that a good leader needs to have, friends, I hate to tell you this, but we would be on here until way past your bedtime. So what are some skills on here that you think a good leader needs to have? Please feel free to use the chat, unmute yourself. I want to hear from you. What does a good leader need? Skills, attributes, qualities. I'm going to ask my friend Elise to read some.
Patience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Loyal.
Oh, yeah.
Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Humility.
That's a good one. Empathy, yeah, and humility.
Use diplomacy.
Oh, yeah.
Passion.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability. A sense of humor.
Yep.
People skills.
Mm-hmm.
They're creative. They're able to delegate. They're driven.
This is good. We could go on and make an endless list. I'm sure of it. Okay. So looking at the list that's in the chat that we just all came up with together. Okay. And some of the ones that I have up on the screen, I want you to, again, let's do some reflecting, right? I want you to think about your club. Who are the members in your club? How much do we really know about them? Okay. And who are those people in your club that sound like this? Who are those people that are patient? Who are those people that show empathy easily? Who are those people that are funny? Those club members who are organized? Who are those club members that are creative? And what do we have those people in our clubs doing? That's the bigger question. Do we always have the person who's good with numbers as our treasurer? Because friends, I can guarantee you they're good at more than just numbers, right? Do we have the person who is an event planner professionally, are they the ones that are planning our fundraisers? Because I can guarantee you they're probably better at just more than that, right? I think oftentimes we say, here are the strengths that are, very apparent on the outside, but what are they passionate about? And what do we really know about them? I think if we took the time to set that, number one, set that expectation for success, that everyone in our club is going to play a part in our success. And if they really took ownership of that, we would probably have a better expectation of what our roles look like in leadership. Because there are sometimes people who, and I've experienced this in my own club, of if I would say, who wants to be president? Raise your hand. No one would raise your hand. No one. And it would be the person who stepped out to go to the bathroom that would be volunteered to go to be the president, right? Like we've had that happen before. But if I said, who will help me with the service project? Every hand would go up, right? So I think we need to reset that expectation and say, hey, it's an expectation to take on leadership roles and to have that succession plan, and to make it that it is not something that we have to do, but that we get to do. Okay. So knowing that we know what succession planning is, what are some qualities of a good leader who can step into these succession roles, let's talk a little bit about the process. Okay. So I have the process laid out here in 5 steps. Okay. And these 5 steps are, number one, define the role. When I say define the role, I mean, what are people really responsible for? What is the culture of our organization? And what are the challenges? Okay. How many times have you had a conversation with someone saying, hey, do you want to be our membership chair? And the person says, no, not me. I don't like to talk to people. I don't want to go recruit anybody. Right? Like, not me. I'm not good enough to be the membership chair. Friends, that is a myth, and that is a false identity, because in my opinion, a membership chair doesn't even have to be great at going out and recruiting members. Should that be a bonus? Yeah, that would be awesome, right? But maybe they are really good about leveraging the other members in their club for people who could go out and recruit members, right? Like maybe they are really organized and they are going to take our 2 for 2 campaign and run with it like we all are, right? Maybe that's something that they're passionate about. So I think sometimes we have to say, here's what the role actually is, and maybe even have a job description for it, right? Maybe even say, here's what we actually need of you. Is that something you can help us with? Number 2, we really need to ensure the vision. What do I mean by that? We have to ensure that the organization, Kiwanis International, has a clear vision so that the business objectives don't drastically sway from one leader to the next. How many times have we said or heard someone in the president role or someone in maybe a fundraising role say, I want to be this leader because I'm going to change everything because the way the person did it before me was awful, right? Like we can't focus on that. We have to focus on the mission and say who's going to get the job done. And you know how we do that? We do that through a couple of ways. Number 1, we give performance feedback and appraisals to the current team members. Okay. Those are going to help determine who might be a good leadership fit among the candidates. Okay. Oftentimes we think feedback is a negative thing. Like this is negative and I don't want feedback and people are fearful of it. But does feedback have to be bad? No, it doesn't, right? Feedback can be something simple as, hey, I really wish we could have spent more time talking about XYZ because that was a topic that interested me. Could we do more of that in the future? That could be some good productive feedback. Okay. Number 2, as we are working on ensuring this vision, we need to, evaluate the current situation of our board. Okay. Who is currently sitting on our board? What, are they fulfilling? Are they enjoying their roles? Is there someone that they have lined up for them? And we have to be thinking and taking an evaluation of our current board. Number 3, we need to be asking people that you naturally would think of. And we also have to ask people that you wouldn't naturally think of to fit into those roles, okay? Who are those people that are naturally good at talking? Maybe they would be really thrive in a president position. Maybe there are some people who they are really good at calling restaurants to get a reservation. Maybe they should be signing up to host a new membership event there, because that's something we need, right? I think there's some unspoken leadership roles in our clubs that maybe people can naturally fit, and we need to make that ask, right? Number 4, we need to have access to training and cross training. If you hear anything that I say tonight, hear this, my friends, okay? We need to develop a culture of shared information, because we don't want the information to leave with the last leader, okay? And I think that that's so easy to do through technology these days. We can easily put everything on a Google Doc, and I'm laughing and smiling because Elise is the queen of Google Docs. And if you ever need help with that, she can help with that. But we need to make sure that all this institutional knowledge that we have isn't just staying, with Elise, and that it is being trickled down, right? And that Shelley knows what the information is from the president that was in the position before she was, right? We need to make sure that we're passing that institutional knowledge. Then finally, we have to do that mentoring, right? We have to make sure that we are facilitating that mentoring between our officers, our board members, general volunteers, so on and so forth. This is really what's going to help nurture our members to maybe take on future opportunities that maybe they didn't volunteer for, but maybe they were voluntold for, right? You'd be lying if you said you weren't voluntold for a couple of positions, right? I know I have been. That's a real thing. And you know what? That's okay too. Sometimes there's beauty in that. So now that we have the process, how do we make it happen? Okay. You do it in the first step is to train all leaders. Okay. We need to be cross-training everyone. When was the last time in your own club that you said, hey, Lilith, I'm going to train you to be the president, not because you have interest in being the president, but because I want you to know what it takes to be the president. When was the last time we cross-trained people? I find in my travels, I have seen many clubs have a president, and they might even have a president-elect. But do they have someone that knows the president's roles who doesn't have interest in stepping up into the leadership position just yet? Maybe we need to be cross-training people so that, again, more people have the knowledge, right? And I think that when they have the right tools, they can be successful with that. We also need to make sure that there is a standard curriculum. And what do I mean by that? Okay. In your club, there might be a strategic plan. And I really hope there is. If there's not, let me know and we can help with that. Okay. But I think we need to make sure that people are being trained on the stuff that's going to be influential for their club, right? Simple things like what is our club known for? Who are the influential people at the school that we support? Making sure that everyone is on the same page. We also need to make sure that we're doing best practices. What do I mean by best practices? I mean, maybe some people don't want to learn from the past. Maybe there was some negative thoughts or feelings about the past leaders, right? So maybe we need to focus on the future, and that's okay too, because we need to say, hey, this is where the Bangor Main Club is at, and this is, where we want to go. So that's what we're going to focus on. And I think those are some of the best practices and resources that we can use. In terms of best practices, resources are my favorite thing. And I think a variety of training sessions, conferences, there's phone calls, there's websites. Even like I mentioned, there are just some really good leadership podcasts out there that you can listen to. And you can simply find them by Googling leadership podcasts, and a whole plethora of things will come up. And I'm sure we can get some suggestions out there too. And then finally, we need to provide those resources. And I say this all the time, but it can't stay here just with us, because if it's staying here with us, it is not doing us any justice, right? Like, it is not helping us if we are here drinking the Kiwanis Kool-Aid, but we're not sharing it with all of our friends. So make sure that whatever you are taking and learning, that you're sharing, and start those conversations of, hey, you know, I just had someone ask me, did we cross-train everyone in our club? No. What would be the benefits of that? Maybe we should look into it. So let's take that and do something with it, right? Another easy way to do that is to do not only some non-Kiwanis based trainings, but when was the last time the people in your club did a skills audit? Okay, by skills audit, I simply mean, what skills do I have? What skills do I have that I haven't told anybody about? Like, I can speak French. Did you guys know that? I can speak French. Why am I not telling people that? Well, because I'm afraid I might have to speak French. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that we, what skills do we have that we're not telling people about? And then, you know, people can learn hard skills. I think it's sometimes those soft skills that aren't easily learned, right? Like to be able to show compassion, right? Like those are things you can't necessarily teach people. You can teach someone to take notes. You can teach someone to create an agenda, right? What are those things you can't teach people? So here's something that I have up on the screen, and I think this is a really good idea, okay? Good leaders develop ideas. Great leaders develop people. The best leaders develop new leaders. Okay, I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. And one of the things that I think is really important to share with every leader that I talk to, every single one of them, I know I've said this to several of you in the room, what you are doing is important. You are a great leader, and what and who comes after you is 10 times more important than anything you will ever do. Okay, hear me when I say you are doing great things. But what comes after you and how you are training the people after you is 10 times more important, because we want them to be more successful than you are, right? Because we want them to continue that succession. We want them to do something with what we've taught them, right? So I think that's really the main part of good succession, and the main job of being a leader is to get things done through other people. I could go on and on about this, but I'll be mindful of our time. One of my favorite leaders, I already said Dolly Parton, but for those of you who don't know, I am from Knoxville, Tennessee. So I love Tennessee women's basketball, and one of the best leaders in the world, in my opinion, was this woman on the screen, the former Pat Head Summit. She was amazing in so many different things, and there's so many great books by her. Talk about good leadership books. But some of the things on the screen that she says that I think is, you know, we could definitely put into best practices here. And I think these are some best practices, right? Number one, find future leaders from new members, right? What are we doing with our new members? Number two, define leadership roles and expectations. 3, train and equip leaders, providing tools for the task, because we can't just say people go lead. We need to give them tools to be successful, right? Number 4, we need to have leaders that are identifying other successful leaders, and then we need to recognize them for their successes. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Some of the things that up on the screen that she says, and that I think is so important, be a competitor, right? We want to be successful, and we as humans are naturally competitive, whether we outwardly show that or not, right? We are naturally competitive in the way that we like fight to live, right? Like we have needs and we need to live. Other ways that she says this on here is like, don't just work hard, work smart. We've all heard that before. Maybe develop and demonstrate loyalty. We said that that was one of the things we want in a leader, right? So I think that these are all things that we can do, and ways that we can do that in the Kiwanis world. Maybe in your clubs, we can conduct an exit interview. When our members are leaving, or when leaders, you know, finish up their presidency at the end of September, maybe we can do an exit interview and say, hey, Walter, what did we learn about, you know, your time as being president? What did you learn? What would you like to take away from this? And maybe we can say, here's some skills I wish I would have had. That way we can then train people to be the best that they can in their upcoming roles. Now, I mentioned recognizing success. I still think this is something that we can do a better job more often. So number one, to recognize success, we need to have an effective nominating committee and or process. What does that look like in your club? Have you ever thought about that? Number two, maybe success in a good succession. Maybe it looks like we have multiple candidates for key officers. When was the last time you had 3 or 4 people running to be president in your club? I don't see very many hands up. Would that look like success for you? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends, right? Maybe success in your club, if you had a really good succession plan, it would mean that the leaders are having fun, right? Maybe success for your club and for your division and for your district looks like there's excitement for club success. We are rallying behind a cause. Maybe for your club, it looks like there's a celebration at every meeting. Who doesn't need to celebrate more, right? We all need that. And then maybe for success for you, maybe it means, or it looks like current and past leaders are mentoring future leaders, because maybe we haven't had them in the past. So now is your time that you can talk to me. I want to know, do you have a succession plan in your club? And is it working for you? If not, why is it not working for you? And if it is, tell me why. So feel free to unmute yourself. I would love to hear your voices, and I know you have thoughts. Or just type away.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yay.
We have a succession plan, and it's probably only due to the fact that we didn't have very many members. Unfortunately, after being at this event tonight, I have seen so many things that I have done wrong as the immediate past president. I don't think I have actually trained the leader enough, but I thought that he would do a great job being a past leader, but I don't know, things just don't seem to be blending. I'm honestly, I probably shouldn't even talk about it, but I am, after seeing all of the great things, all the great ideas, all of the things that we were doing, I'm really getting a little depressed about my club. I want it to be fun, and I don't know what to do, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I know you have a lot of ideas. I know Elise does, and everybody else does here, and maybe they can help me work through it. Please.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to know you're not alone. This is not something that is just affecting you. This is not a your club issue. And honestly, I would say that this is probably a season for your club. It is not this is how it's forever going to be. It is not. And we can definitely give you some intentional ideas to make that happen. Number one, my suggestion, I would be very curious to know everyone else's suggestions, so please feel free to put those in the chat too, is number one, do you have the right leaders in place? If not, work on getting the right leaders in place, because a really good leader can really change the whole dynamic of a club. And sometimes I think we say, hey, Elise, would you want to be the president? And no one steps up to be the president. Right? But maybe you can say, hey, Elise, would you be willing to help me create an agenda so that way I can follow it, even though I've never put together an agenda before? And maybe she'd be like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can do that in my sleep, right? So I think we can have people step up to help, even though if they're not officially wanting, for example, the president title after their name. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think we've got a lot. We're in our club right now. We've got a learning curve. We've got to learn to work as a committee, to work as a club. We've just had a wonderful, and I thought about it while I was listening to you. We just had a great, successful fundraiser. We had our first car show, and it was amazing. And I realize now it's because of the leader that put the whole car show together. And I am going to talk to him till I'm blue in the face to see if he will step up, because I believe he can do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what he learned, what the process was, and see if you can mirror that in your club.
I'm working at it. That's what I'm working at it, because I'm not going to give up.
Small steps. I love
Small
that.
steps. Yes. Yes.
Hi, Betty Parker. I think you're up next.
We do have a succession plan in the club, but we didn't have one in the division. And I'm thinking that perhaps if I share what I did with that based on someone's suggestion, it might be helpful to other people. What happened is at a past lieutenant governor's meeting, people were discussing they couldn't get lieutenant governors. And Hope Marks, who's our district trustee, was so wonderful. And she said, why don't you start getting testimonials, positive, obviously, testimonials from past lieutenant governors in all your clubs. Pass those around and see if that inspires. And I believe it did the trick. The same thing can be said for a club. What I've done, I've been lieutenant governor 2 years in a row. So what I've done from the very first day 2 years ago is I kept a log. And when we got the new lieutenant governor, I shared everything with him and continued to do so. And then after he was elected designate, he's just been copied on everything. And I think that's what's lacking in most clubs. I think if if there's more transparency, people will not be afraid of what the job is, whether you're in charge of a car show or you're in charge of a tag sale or whatever. And if people also write, when they have time, write down what it is that they do, that can be passed on. I really like the way you approached this, Emily. I thought you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And anything from Hope Marks needs to be shared. So thank you for sharing that. She's great. Yeah, we need more testimonials for sure. Thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts, ideas, comments? Lisa, I'll let you tell me if there's anything on Facebook or in the chat.
Yes, I have a couple of maybe some comments, some questions, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Love it.
Do you have any suggestions to help with burnout, or when the same members do a lot of things when you're working on succession planning?
Oh gosh. So that's so hard. My first thought is, I feel like I'm saying a lot of sayings tonight, but there's that saying that if you want to get something done, ask a busy person, because they'll always get it done, right? I see a lot of heads nodding because you're probably the busy people that are getting all the work done. I think oftentimes we don't ask enough people for help because we don't trust that someone else will get the job done, or B, that it makes us look that we aren't able to achieve if we're asking for help. I oftentimes think that is the beauty of being a leader, is delegating those tasks, even when we might not want to. And so, yeah, that's often the biggest problem that I see, is that the same people are in the same positions all the time. So here's the secret sauce. So you ready? If you need someone to be the treasurer because you've had the same treasurer forever and no one else wants to do it, go recruit a new treasurer. If you need someone who is very, philanthropic minded, go recruit someone who's philanthropically minded, because maybe you just need someone else who has that interest. And then that interest is going to spread like wildfire, and it is going to be all around your club. I just think also sometimes we need to ask the right people to do the right jobs. So that would be my approach to that question. I hope that was helpful.
Do you have any suggestions for what to do if this wouldn't happen in our Kiwanis clubs, but if you were in a Kiwanis club or an organization where perhaps one of the leaders is part of the problem or the reason why people are not stepping up.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that is definitely a problem in that some clubs are facing in other organizations, definitely not Kiwanis, right? Or definitely not in our club. And I'd be lying if I said that, so I won't say that. Yeah, I think oftentimes we have to have intentional conversations, right? We all know those intentional conversations sometimes aren't easy, right? But that's why it's so important to have a succession plan of, you know, we're not going to have the same president for 15 years. We're going to have a president for 1 year or 2 years, and then we're going to build off of that, because that's the other reason why we have positions such as president-elect, such as aspiring leader, such as you know, board members and people who can have those intentional conversations. And as a board and as a leadership team, we have to have those people who are willing to do, again, what's best for the children in our communities that we're serving, not what's best for Emily Saalfrank, because what's best for Emily Saalfrank might not be the best of the mission, for example. So I would suggest having very intentional conversations about, we have someone who we think we want to ask to step up. They're going to start shadowing you to spark interest. That would be my route to take that really hard, not easy to answer question.
Great. Do you have a list or maybe some favorite resources, maybe a favorite leadership podcast or any books that you've read that you would suggest to our members?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I am like looking at my bookshelf that I have down here. Good to Great by Jim Collins is really good. I love that book. The Fred Factor, that is a really good book that you can read. It's about a postman. I've done a whole workshop on that. It's really good book. Good book. Of course, now that you asked me, I am struggling to think of podcasts, but I literally have a whole list that Elise, maybe you can add to the recording at the end of this once I text them to you, that we could share, because I love recommendations of books and podcasts. So maybe we can come up with something creative together to get that out. I'm happy to share.
Sure. If you send me some lists of some of your favorites, I can put them in our Google Drive.
You got it. Check.
A couple comments. Someone really liked that you talked about splitting tasks. Felt like that was a great suggestion. When you don't have lots of members to do things, they might want to do the whole job, but they're able to do a part of it. And Siobhan had actually made a point. She just made a suggestion, so I'll write that one down too. But had said, I think sometimes people in leadership feel as though they may come across as weak if they ask for help, but it speaks volumes when we do. We're all learning together. And that was
we are all learning together. That is such a great comment. I love that. It takes a lot to ask for help.
Great.
Well, friends, I will put my email in the chat. It is just Saalfrank. I know it's spelled very weird. I just got married, so I'm learning to love this new last name. So my email is esaalfrank@kiwanis.org. I'm always happy to chat or just to listen or to help come up with next steps for you. But I know you had a choice of what to do tonight, and I'm really glad you came to hang out with me. So thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to Elise.
Thank you so much, Emily. We really always love when you come and share some of your joy and insight with us. You're one of our most requested and favorite presenters. So thank you for spending your evening with the New England and Bermuda District.
Yeah.
So according to our interclub liaison, David Griffin, we had 8 Kiwanis clubs represented. We also had a guest from outside of our district. And a special shout out to Hamilton for having 4 members in attendance, and Orono Old Town with 6 members in attendance. So this is as I mentioned earlier, this is our 9th monthly workshop for the 2021-2022 Kiwanis year. So make sure to save the first Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Atlantic time for more useful content. Remember to encourage your fellow club members to join us for all these free Kiwanis education opportunities. You can find more information on our district Facebook page, in our district Facebook group at newenglandkiwanis.org. We also have a playlist on our YouTube channel from 2020, 2021, and 2022. So there is a lot of content there that would be useful for clubs, especially as we're getting towards the end of a Kiwanis year. There's a lot of leadership related opportunities for people who are taking on new leadership roles. So you can check out all of those links in our link tree, which I just put in the chat, which is Linktree NEBD Kiwanis. That has all of those links together. So you just have to save one link together. It also has our virtual workshop series Google Drive, where you can get some of this content and some of the slide decks and everything. So I want to thank our district education committee members, Brian Cofrancisco, who is assistant to the leadership development coordinator, and David Griffin, who's our wonderful, fabulous, fantastic interclub liaison, who helped behind the scenes to make these monthly workshops a success. Please stay safe, be well. We'll see some of you hopefully in person at International Convention next week. And we will see everyone else back here on Zoom on July 6th. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good to see you.